Tonight, dozens have been indicted in the alleged drug ring, and authorities say the alleged drug enterprise on Weymouth Street was ran like a business.
The FBI is carrying out this raid in Kensington.
Tonight, dozens have been indicted in an alleged drug ring stretching from Kensington to Puerto Rico.
The FBI and DEA have just executed one of the most sweeping drug trafficking crackdowns in Philadelphia's modern history. In a single, tightly coordinated morning, federal agents surged through the Kensington neighborhood and dismantled what prosecutors describe as the Weymouth Street drug trafficking organization, a violent criminal network that ruled open-air drug corners for nearly a decade. 33 defendants now face federal indictments, marking the largest narcotics conspiracy case ever filed in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania in the 21st century. Even seasoned investigators admitted that the scale and depth of this organization's grip on one neighborhood was staggering. "This is exactly how you protect American lives," said one federal agent. "You take the fight directly to the organizations that are inflicting pain across our communities." For years, residents had called Kensington a no-go zone, a neighborhood suffocated by fentanyl, heroin, and relentless street warfare. But on October 24th, 2025, that reign of fear was finally broken. Officials emphasized that this takedown wasn't just about arrests. It was about restoring hope and reclaiming control over a part of Philadelphia that had lived under criminal rule for too long. According to prosecutors, the Weimoth DTO functioned with corporate-level precision. It operated around the clock, maintaining strict schedules, armed security, and coded channels of communication. Members trafficked fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and crack cocaine, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every deal was recorded, every block taxed, and every rival met with ruthless violence. When the indictment was unsealed, agents revealed that the network's profits had soared into the millions, fueled by addiction, intimidation, and the suffering of a community. For nearly 10 years, the organization dominated the 3100 block of Weimoth Street, what investigators now call one of the most active open-air drug markets in America. The scale of the enforcement operation stunned the entire city. FBI tactical teams, DEA narcotics units, and the Philadelphia Police Department launched simultaneous pre-dawn raids. Helicopters thundered overhead. Armored vehicles sealed off intersections. Agents breached row houses, converted into stash sites, and arrested suspects in rapid, synchronized waves. By sunrise, 24 of the 33 defendants were already in custody. 8 more were already incarcerated on related charges, and 1 remained at large. Federal command confirmed that every key figure within the Weimoth organization had been neutralized. Dozens of firearms, kilograms of narcotics, and stacks of cash were seized during the raids. "This isn't just another drug bust," one agent told reporters. "This is the removal of a criminal business that poisoned an entire community." Yet, even the arrests only scratched the surface of what investigators would later uncover. Inside the seized homes, agents discovered ledgers, encrypted cell phones, and coded chat logs, all pointing to a sophisticated network that extended far beyond Philadelphia. The evidence exposed links to suppliers in Puerto Rico and along the Gulf Coast. Federal analysts traced wire transfers and money laundering routes running through shell companies and money service accounts. The data confirmed what law enforcement had long suspected, and that Kensington street corners were the final destination in a transnational supply chain stretching from Caribbean ports all the way to the alleyways of Philadelphia's row houses. The FBI called the case a blueprint for how modern cartels quietly embed themselves within American cities. Agents made one message unmistakably clear. This wasn't random street crime. It was an organized criminal enterprise, operating like a corporate empire built on death and addiction. According to the federal indictment, the Weymouth DTO was commanded by Jose Antonio Morales Neas, known on the streets as Flaco. Operating between Puerto Rico and Philadelphia, Morales authorized all drug activity in exchange for rent payments and protection fees. Beneath him, a hierarchy of lieutenants managed day-to-day distribution, coordinated street shifts, and handled collections. Below them, runners, couriers, and lookouts enforced Morales' control through fear and violence. Witness intimidation was common. Anyone suspected of cooperating with police faced brutal retaliation. Prosecutors compared the organization's structure to that of a military unit, with orders flowing from the top, discipline enforced through violence, and loyalty demanded at all costs. Though centered on Weimoth Street, the DTO's reach extended across nearby intersections, including F and Clementine, E and Wishart, and Potter Street. Agents uncovered dozens of stash houses hidden in plain sight, often disguised as vacant or abandoned homes. Inside, investigators found digital scales, packaging materials, and bricks of narcotics, each batch stamped with a unique Weimoth logo, branding the operation's product like a legitimate business. Lookouts equipped with police scanners monitored patrols and relayed warnings through encrypted messaging apps. Couriers moved drugs and cash through narrow alleys, while managers recorded daily profits in handwritten ledgers marked only with initials and quantities. Over 9 years, the Weimoth organization became so structured and entrenched that it effectively replaced local order, operating its own payroll, enforcing its own laws, and maintaining silence through fear. When the raids finally commenced, FBI and DEA tactical teams executed over 20 warrants at once. Drone footage captured agents storming doorways, seizing weapons, and leading suspects out of homes in handcuffs, a sight that residents said they never thought they'd live to see. For Kensington, October 24th wasn't just another date on the calendar. It was the day federal justice came crashing through the doors of an empire built on addiction, and the day a long-suffering neighborhood finally began to breathe again. By the time the operation concluded, authorities had seized an arsenal that revealed just how militarized the Weimoth organization had become. Agents recovered assault rifles, handguns, and thousands of rounds of ammunition, hard evidence of a network prepared for war. Alongside the weapons, teams confiscated large quantities of fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine, along with stacks of cash hidden inside furniture, walls, and false compartments. Several suspects attempted to destroy their phones and SIM cards as the raids unfolded, but digital forensics teams deployed on site recovered nearly all of the data, preserving vital evidence that mapped out communication lines and supply routes. Federal officials emphasized that the Weimoth organization's brutality extended far beyond drug sales. Members were tied to multiple shootings, assaults, and retaliatory attacks, some captured on surveillance footage now entered into evidence. Rivals who dared to sell drugs on Weimoth-controlled corners were driven out, beaten, or executed. Within the group's encrypted messages, murders were referred to as cleanups, and police officers were nicknamed walkers. Prosecutors said this level of control transformed a handful of city blocks into what agents described as a self-contained war zone. Residents endured nightly gunfire, and 911 dispatches were flooded with calls, yet few dared to speak out. Fear silenced the community. This wasn't just a crew selling drugs, one investigator remarked. It was a criminal government, a regime built on fear and blood. The success of the takedown, officials explained, came from patience and precision. The investigation had been years in the making, built on wiretaps, controlled buys, and long-term surveillance dating back to 2020. Under the Project Safe Neighborhoods initiative, federal and local law enforcement combined resources to identify high-impact targets and link street-level drug activity to broader national networks. Intelligence sharing between the FBI, DEA, and Philadelphia Police Department allowed investigators to pinpoint the organization's leadership structure, trace financial flows, and chart connections before moving in. Officials credited this seamless coordination as a model for future urban narcotics operations, proof that collaboration, not speed, delivers lasting results. For the people of Kensington, the morning of the raid marked a turning point. Residents who had spent years trapped under the shadow of open-air drug markets watched from their windows and porches as armored vehicles rolled through streets once ruled by fear. Parents stood in disbelief as federal agents carried evidence boxes out of homes that had doubled as drug hubs for nearly a decade. For the first time in years, one resident said quietly, we could hear silence instead of gunshots. Federal officials later described the 3100 block of Weimoth Street as the epicenter of Philadelphia's opioid crisis, a place where addiction, violence, and poverty collided. With the Weimoth DTO dismantled, agents said the neighborhood finally had a chance to begin healing. Community leaders cautioned that recovery would not come overnight, but it had undeniably begun. City crews moved swiftly to clean up abandoned lots, seal off buildings once used as stash sites, and clear debris from the raids. Outreach programs and nonprofit organizations stepped in, offering addiction treatment, housing assistance, and job placement for those displaced by the market's collapse. Federal prosecutors stressed that enforcement alone cannot solve the crisis, but removing the leadership that profited from pain was the necessary first step. You can't rebuild while armed traffickers rule the block, one U.S. attorney said. Now, at least, this community can breathe again. Nationally, Operation Weimoth Block has already become a case study in coordinated enforcement. Intelligence collected by PSN Recon, a joint FBI DEA analytics division, indicates that the same supply chains fueling Kensington also feed other major U.S. cities, including Baltimore, Chicago, and Atlanta. Homeland Security analysts have linked several seized phones to Caribbean and Gulf Coast smuggling routes, expanding the investigation far beyond Pennsylvania. As a result, new coordinated operations are already in motion to trace the Weimoth organization's upstream suppliers, couriers, and financial handlers. Federal agencies have begun targeting the flow of precursor chemicals used in fentanyl production, pushing the investigation beyond national borders into international territory. In Washington, the Department of Justice hailed the Kensington operation as a model for interagency success. Officials noted that when local intelligence combines with federal resources, even the most entrenched urban drug economies can be dismantled. Operation Weimoth Block shows what happens when we treat a neighborhood crisis as a national threat. We win, said one senior DEA official. The agency confirmed that similar joint task forces are now being deployed to other cities across the country, focusing on fentanyl distribution networks operating inside U.S. borders. But federal agents cautioned that the war is far from over. The fentanyl epidemic continues to evolve. Traffickers are adapting, changing their tactics, shifting their communication methods, and exploiting new routes. For every network dismantled, others wait to take its place. That's why law enforcement describes Operation Weimoth Block not as an ending, but as a beginning, a framework for relentless, intelligence-driven enforcement that never lets criminal empires regroup. To ensure that, the FBI and DEA have established a permanent command post in Kensington, a long-term presence designed to monitor re-emerging threats, coordinate community outreach, and support ongoing recovery efforts. We took down a criminal empire, one agent said. Now we have to make sure it never comes back. The U.S. Attorney's Office confirmed that the case remains active as prosecutors pursue asset forfeitures, financial recoveries, and international cooperation to choke off the organization's remaining channels. Future initiatives will focus on rebuilding Kensington block by block, transforming what was once one of America's most notorious drug markets into a safe, livable community once again. For Philadelphia, this was more than a raid. It was a message, a declaration that the era of open-air drug empires in Kensington is over. And the federal government isn't walking away.